the easiest way to feel more calm, right? When you're giving a presentation or when you're standing in front of people, is if you focus your attention on the audience instead of yourself. Like, you can't actually serve yourself and the audience at the same time, right? So if you're focused on serving someone else, like, you're not thinking about yourself. Almost all of the times, right? When I was worked up or stressed out or, worried about something, or again, like, I'm horrible at this or whatever it might be, it's always because you're focusing on yourself. And if you're like, well, what am I here to do? What is my goal here? Like, who am I here to serve? Even if I didn't even ask myself that question before this moment, I can identify somebody I can serve. And it's like, if I put the focus on that person and make it a great experience for that person, I'm no longer thinking about myself.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hey there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. Today we're going to finish up our interview with Kristin Mangus, who is a career coach. If you didn't hear the previous episode, make sure that you go back and listen to the first part of her interview. We talked about how to find your purpose and how to find the right career for an INFJ. And just a little bit more about Kristin. For nearly 2 decades, Kristin has been helping brands, from scrappy entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 companies, develop strategies and solutions in talent development, team effectiveness, performance management, and organizational behavior. Within this work, she especially loves discovering and curating the best ideas, research, and strategies, and distilling them into simple concepts, insight-driven activities, and practical tools that are easy to apply. Kristin is casual, refreshingly honest, and focused on real solutions that actually work. She has some amazing advice, so if you are interested in finding your purpose or your career, you've come to the right place. Make sure that you go to thequietonespodcast.com for all of the links that we mentioned in the episode. This is episode 41. And as a reminder, you can watch the video interview on YouTube at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. I loved what you said earlier too about paralyzing ourselves with learning, because I did that for so long because I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, I like college, so I'm going to stay in college. And then I graduate with $70,000 worth of college loans, and I don't know what to do. I still don't know what to do. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And then I thought about starting my own business, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hire a business coach. And they're like, it's $5,000 for 6 months. And I'm like, I don't have $5,000, but I'm going to find it because this is going to help me. This is what I need. This is the answer. Yeah. and then it's like, okay, well, I think maybe I might want to be a life coach, maybe. Well, you can go to school to do that. So you can spend 10 more years in school, or 2 more years, I think it is. And I'm like, yeah, but that's going to be another $30,000 or $40,000. And I don't know if I want to do that. But we just constantly, and I've talked to so many people who do the same thing, that it's like, I want to do this new thing, but I don't want to do it right now because it's really scary and I'm not really good at it. So I'm going to figure out how to be really good at it, and then I'm going to do it. Yeah. But the problem is that you're never going to be really good at it if you don't actually do it.
Right. And you're never going to be really good at it, or well, I don't say never, but the chances that you're going to be really good at it right off the bat are very slim. So
Yeah.
let's just like give ourselves some grace, right? From the beginning, let's like, we go into so many things thinking like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it's hard or we don't do as well as we think. And it's like, well, of course you're not like, so copywriting for me, right? I said earlier, I overanalyze everything, including, I edit myself over and over and over, right? And so I bought a class. First, I bought a book on copywriting, and then I bought a course on copywriting. And then I was like, you know what? I should just pay somebody to
Do it for me.
write some copy for me. And I did pay a friend, right? But I'm still in this space where then I was like, but I can't pay somebody to write everything for me. I don't have, I'm just not at that place. Again, I'm doing all this different stuff. And I'm trying to do it scrappy. So what I really need to do is just become more comfortable writing stuff that's not perfect and putting it out there. That's really what I need.
Yeah.
And I spent a year doing all this other stuff when really I just need to put it out there and know that it doesn't matter as much to anybody else as it matters to me, right?
Yes.
If it doesn't get 1,000 leads right off the bat, okay. Like you could change it. Like you could change it.
Yes,
Right?
you can
It's like
see it.
I'm coaching myself all the time because it's like these expectations are just so ingrained.
And we're so afraid to fail. We're so afraid to let other people see us fail. I mean, that's one of my biggest fears is feeling like a failure. And every time I have some kind of offer that I want to share with people, like the self-love class that I'm doing, like I'm writing a book and I have a couple of other workbooks, and I spent hours and hours working on this book about habits because I had all this information about habits that was my own personal research. And I was like, I'm going to create a new habit. And here's all the stuff that I did to create this habit that I have of writing a blog. And I want to share it with other people. And that was my intention. And then I spent hours because I love graphic design and I love writing. So I'm making this really cute little ebook. And then I'm like, oh, but what if nobody likes it? And what if they don't read it? And what if they don't buy it? And then I'm scared to put it out there.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it out there, but just like really gingerly and like not make a big deal of it. And nobody bought it because I didn't have any confidence in it.
Also, if your fear is that no one's going to read it, does it even matter if it's out there?
So then it's like, I've set myself up for failure as far as selling it. And then I'm like, oh, well, it was terrible. I must be a horrible writer. I'm a terrible graphic designer. Like the whole thing is awful and it's not going to work. And I'm like, I'm probably 2 months removed from that now. And I went back to look at it the other night when I was looking at the new email thing. And I'm like, where is this file? I don't even know where it is. And I'm trying to search for all of it. And there's no graphics for selling it or promoting it. There's no landing page for it. And I'm like, how was I planning on selling this if I don't even have a place where people can buy it? No wonder nobody bought it. Right? So then it's like, okay, let me restructure this whole thing and say, hey, this is a good thing that actually helped me a lot. And I want to provide you with this value and I want it to be important for you. And I want you to be invested in it so that you actually read it.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, like 30 people bought it. And I'm like, oh, so it makes this big difference. And I was so scared to fail that I didn't even want to tell people that I put all this time and effort into something. But it actually is really valuable. And when I did, people saw the value in it and they bought it. And then it's like, it seems like such a simple thing and it seems really easy until you're in the moment and you get hit with that fear and you're like paralyzed and then you can't do it. And it's hard to get past all of that fear and say, okay, it doesn't matter if it fails. It doesn't matter if nobody buys it. You have to keep trying. And maybe they're not going to buy the first one. Maybe they're going to buy the second one or the fifth one or the 10th one. Because especially when you're talking about online businesses and coaching, a lot of the information out there is, you hear about somebody talking about, oh, I had this audience and I launched this course and I made $2 million off of it in a day. And you're like, you have this expectation that that's how it's going to work. So you launch a course and nobody buys it. And then you're like, oh my God, it must be terrible. I'm a terrible coach. I'm a terrible at marketing. Like I'm terrible at everything and it's never going to work. But then it comes back to like expectation versus reality as well. And
Yeah.
it's a learning process to say, okay, that didn't work. What happened? And let me try it again. But then you're so scared. Like it comes back to fear again. You're terrified to fail because you failed the first time. So then that's how your mind is thinking, that I'm a failure, so it's not going to work. So I'm not going to try it the second time. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to make money some other way.
Well, and we love to make everything about us, right? Like we love to always make it about us. I remember, again, it was not the presentation class I was talking about earlier, but a different one that I created for another organization. And I remember like one of the pieces of content within it is like the easiest way to feel more calm, right? When you're giving a presentation or when you're standing in front of people, is if you focus your attention on the audience instead of yourself. Like you can't actually serve yourself and the audience at the same time, right? So if you're focused on serving someone else, like you're not thinking about yourself. And I remember trying that a few times, that advice, and it was really helpful, right? Because like almost all of the times, right, when I was worked up or stressed out or, worried about something, or again, like, I'm horrible at this or whatever it might be, it's always because you're focusing on yourself. And if you're like, well, what am I here to do? What is my goal here? Like, who am I here to serve? Even if I didn't even ask myself that question before this moment, I can identify somebody I can serve. And it's like, if I put the focus on that person and making a great experience for that person, I'm no longer thinking about myself, right? And even if you do it 20 times in a day, right? Like even if that continuous practice, again, it's that repetition that creates new patterns. It could be really helpful. That was the one little takeaway that I had when researching content for that, and it was helpful at the time, in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to focus on other people and to say, okay, I know enough, because it comes back to, everything for me comes back to self-love. It's like, I'm not enough. I don't know enough. I don't deserve to be paid for what I do. And part of it too is like, it started with, this is my hobby. This is fun for me. And I would do it if I don't get paid. But then you get to that point where you're like, no, I have to get paid. Like I'm spending 60 hours a week doing this. And it's costing me $600 a month. And it's like, I have to get paid. This has to be a real business. There has to be some kind of transition. And all I was expecting going into this is, let me start a business.
Yeah.
And it became I don't love myself. I have to figure out how to do that. Yeah. And it's like, I never would have thought that those two things are connected. Yeah. But I mean, it's been an amazing journey so far. And I just feel like every single week I'm learning something new, which is completely amazing, because I love doing that.
Yes. No, it sounds like, you're right. Like when you take it away from you, you're like, what's the problem I have to solve? And you're just like, okay, this isn't working. What about it isn't working? What would I change to make it work? Then again, you're taking the focus off yourself and you're making it about solving a puzzle, right? And sometimes it's way easier to focus on, right? For sure.
And just finding those people out there who are dealing with the same things that you have dealt with, and that they need help because you needed help. And you just have to find them and tell them that, hey, I have help available for this thing. I've been there, and this is what it looked like, and this is what it can look like. It's more about telling a story than selling something.
I know I did some work at one point around really trying to uncover some money beliefs and beliefs that I had that were kind of keeping me stuck. And one of the things that I realized was I had this belief that you can't make money doing something that you love, right? You can't, or you shouldn't. Either you can't or you shouldn't. And I think it's more you shouldn't. Like you shouldn't be able to make money doing something that you love, something that comes easy. You should have to work hard for money. You should have to work and sacrifice for success, because that's what I saw modeled, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting how much that sticks with you, because I do think for me that really kept me, and it still keeps me from feeling comfortable, feeling really good about charging for certain work, right? Especially things I love to do, right? It's so hard. And sometimes it's like, well, what's the value in that, right? It's not so tangible, but there's tremendous value in it, right? And so then you're downplaying your worth and the value that you're adding in that situation. And it really messes with your energetic, right? The energetics around what you do and how open you are to receiving, right? Money for whatever, service that you're offering. And so it's something I recognize and I still work on. And for me, even if it's like, again, sometimes really small steps, right, are the best way to make progress. We really underestimate, a lot of times we think, we have to just, change everything. But really small steps. So for me, around something like that, it might just be like, okay, well, instead of saying I'm going to do this for free, I'm going to find somebody that I can exchange a service with, right? Because so that feels okay, right? Like that feels good. That's maybe how I started. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm going to charge something for it. Like you pay me whatever you think, right? Maybe it's $10. I don't know. But it's, the act of taking some money, right? And I know even within my consulting, I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, like the rate that I started out charging was less than half of what I charge now, right? And that's because, once you start doing the work, you're like, well, actually, like this is, you see more people. I think, again, like look for people who are charging what you want to make. And if you're really focused on adding the value and not just making money, right? I think it's easier, but I agree. I think it's really hard. That's one of the beliefs that I recognized I had based on what was modeled. And I was like, oh, like, that's why, you know what I mean? Like you can clearly see. So then it's like, well, one, how do I reframe that? Right? There's a lot of ways to reframe that. There's a lot of examples, people that I can find, right, that are adding value in that way that I would pay money for, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And then actually taking small actions towards it, I think is, really helpful and can get kind of like some momentum started. But then that opens up the door to charge more and then more and then, and then actually hopefully make a living from it. Or then actually make a living from it. Okay. I am INTJ. I will say that I am really close. I don't know if you ever like look at like how close you are to like the different thresholds. Mm-hmm. I know when I was in college, the first time I took the assessment, I was in college and I was a psychology major, and I took the assessment and I saw my results and I was like, that's not right. So I took it again, and I took it again, and I took it again, and I tried to even like answer it in a way that I thought was more aligned with the perception that I had of myself or who I wanted to be or who I thought I needed to be. Any of those things, all of those things.
Right.
And no matter how many times I took that assessment, I kept getting the same thing over and over. And I was like, all right, look, that's fine. Like that's what the assessment's going to say. And then later on, when I was actually working in learning and development, it kind of came up again. And, some people use Myers-Briggs within different organizations. And I was like, oh, I'll take it again. And sure enough, like every single time. So I'm pretty sure I am an INTJ. I don't think I can fudge it. But I see it so much now, right? Like the things that I didn't see before, as I've like, evolved through my career, I do see it. And I really have come to then perceive those things as strengths. And I've learned how I can use those qualities in ways to really not only help me, but the people around me and the organizations that I'm working with. And so, like now I wouldn't go back and try to be something else, right?
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of a journey for me, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I did the same thing when I first took the test. I answered the questions how I thought that I wanted to be. And I actually came up INTJ, and I thought that I was an INTJ for several years until it was my niece, who was like 13 at the time, who's, we're sitting there, and she was still is just as obsessed with personality types as I am. And we were sitting there discussing how she made her grandma upset and why she was upset and trying to figure out her personality. And I was trying to tell her, I'm like, you did this, and if you handled it this way better, like you really hurt her feelings and all these different things. And my niece looks at me and she goes, I don't think that you have a thinking personality type, because you're always talking about feelings and you're thinking about feelings, and you have to have a feeling personality type. And I'm like, why would you say that? Why do you got to be so rude to me?
Feelings.
At that time, I was like, I don't want to have all of the feelings. And I thought that if you had a feeling personality type, that you had to be outwardly emotional and crying and dramatic and all of these things, like all the time. And she's an INTP. So she's like, I don't think about feelings that way. And we're kind of comparing how we process different situations and stuff. And I'm like, okay, maybe I do have a feeling personality type. And maybe it's just not what I thought that it was, is that, you know, it can be on the inside. It doesn't have to be on the outside. You can still be stoic and not share all of those feelings, but still have them at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was this big learning experience for me, but it's always amazing to me that when I have a problem like that, I go and talk to her about it, because she's like, she's not afraid to call me out. She's like, no, you're thinking about yourself in the wrong way. You have this wrong idea of who you are, and you need to reevaluate it.
Oh my gosh, and how old is she? 13?
She was then. She's about 16 now, but she's very intelligent, especially when it comes to personality types, because you know, she's been learning about them now since she was 13. So
yes. Oh, that's so funny. I know. Well, for me, like for me as INTJ, I was like, well, no, like I'm really empathetic. Like I care about people. Like, why would you think, I thought it seemed so cold-hearted. Like, oh,
right.
I care about logic and reasoning. I was like, that's not true. So, yes, it's just so funny how we interpret. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the information out there too, I feel like is written by people who aren't that personality type. They just base what they write on a theory. And maybe they've never even met an INTJ or an INFJ, and they don't know what it's like. And so they're just like, well, this is how you should be based on this theory. And you read it and you're like, well, that doesn't really fit all the time. You know, like my misconception about being overly emotional. So, I mean, I think you really have to meet not only just one, but several of the same personality type, and see where your differences and your similarities are, to really understand what that personality type is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like, again, it also goes back to like, what's your definition of emotional? Because I know when I am passionate about something, right? Like I know I can get really emotional, right? Whether I'm talking about something or upset, you know what I mean? I do, you were talking about assessments, and I do a lot of assessments. Like I do work with a lot of assessments. And one of them that I think you'd be really interested in, have you heard of Berkman? It's really interesting. You should look it up. I'm certified to deliver it if you're interested in doing it. Because what it does is, so it's different. So we talked about strength. No, we didn't talk about strength finders. That was somebody else. So with Berkman, it is, so they have a really, I mean, they have a database that has like, I don't know how, like ridiculous number of people in it. But basically this database, they continuously renorm. And when you answer your responses, it's a global database, but like your responses show, you were talking about career, right? People who answer the same way as you have shown to be really happy and fulfilled in these types of careers, right? So it's kind of the connection between the data there. But so they have 9 different components that they assess against. And one of them has to do with emotional energy, right? There's physical energy, there's emotional energy, and there's social energy. So social energy is more around like the intuition, and social energy is more around introversion and extroversion. Like, where do you get your energy? Do you get it like, when you how do you recharge, right? Not to say that I might not enjoy being social, right? That's not what it says, but it's like, where are you receiving your energy from, and where are you becoming depleted? They also use a term that really resonated with me the first time I heard it, which was selectively social. I was like, yes, that is me 100%, right? Because when I was younger, I was like, wait, I'm not introverted. I talk to plenty of people. I love to chat. I was like, well, I love to chat with the people I want to chat with, right?
Right.
Like there's, like I want to, like I don't get energy from everybody. I get energy from a select group of people, or when I talk about certain things, right? Or when I'm really connecting.
Yep.
So, so that's the social energy, but then we were just talking about emotional energy, which is right. And one of the things I like to talk about to people when I'm doing a debrief, right, is like you can have two people who are equally upset, right? Furious, fuming, right? And I think about this in a corporate, like usually I'm coaching in a corporate space, but like one person is like screaming and yelling and like, really losing their shit, right? The other person is just sitting there silently with their arms crossed, right? And it was so funny is like we see the person that's externalizing their emotions, right? We don't see the person that's internalizing their emotion. I mean, you can't see it, right? I have two children. One externalizes their emotions, one externalizes their emotions. And it's so funny to see the difference, right? Like one of them is just like slowly crumbling inside, and you wouldn't even know it if you didn't know her. And then the other one is like just completely losing it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
That makes so much sense to me because I have anxiety and I have panic attacks, and people look at me and they go, "You don't have panic attacks." And I'm like, "No, I do. You don't see them." Like, it's not an outward thing. I
Yes.
could be having a total meltdown and you wouldn't know. The expression on my face doesn't change. The way that I'm talking to you, communicating with you doesn't change. I might leave unexpectedly or quickly, but other than that, I'm not going to tell you that that's what's going on because it's an inward thing and it's extremely personal for me. And a lot of people associate that with being an outward type of big, expression and crying in hysterics or rocking back and forth in the corner, but that's not always what it is.
Well, and there's also people that are in the middle, right? And it depends on the situation or who they're around. Maybe I'm one way at home and I'm another way, so it kind of, you're like not more of a blend, but it's more situational.
Right.
But so this assessment, this is why I also think you would like it. So it gives you your strengths, which are your learned behaviors. So they're not innate strengths. They're how you've learned to be successful, like early in your career, what you're validated for, what you continue to do, right? How you learn to be successful. So those are your strengths. But then it also talks about your needs. So you see your strengths against these 9 components. You see your needs. So what do you need from your environment and the people around you? And your needs are often, well, not always, but sometimes different than your strengths, right? So it's kind of like if you think about like the person who, let's think about how we communicate, right? Like some people are very direct communicators. So my tendency, my behavior might be that I'm very direct and I say exactly what I think needs to be said, right? So what's going to happen is people are going to say, she's a straight shooter. She likes people to tell her how it is. Well, that might not be true. Just because I project that way doesn't mean that's what I need from the people around me. So, but what's likely to happen is people give you what they see because they're trying to, like treat people the way they want to be treated. The whole, like, the people are like, oh, well, if she's treating me this way, she must want to be treated this way. Right. So they are very direct with me, let's say. And let's say that's not my need. Actually, that sends me into stress, right? So it talks about these are your strengths, how you project, how you show up when you're at your best. These are your needs, what you need from your environment to show up at your best. And then your stress behaviors are your behaviors when you're not getting your needs met. They're the counterintuitive or the counterproductive behaviors that you actually do on a subconscious level to try to get your needs met. So fascinating. And so you're looking at these 3 components or these 3 elements against like these 9 different like components, which is just so interesting. And then it also talks a little bit about, or it gives you insight into your interests, right? Which are just like those activities that kind of like light you up, that give you energy outside of these different domains. But if you're ever interested in exploring that, it's one of my favorite assessments because it's so nuanced, and there's so many different insight reports too.
Mm-hmm.
And from a career standpoint, it really helps you understand organizational fit, manager fit. What kind of questions should you ask? I mean, like, you can go really deep into it. But yeah, I love, you're talking about assessments. I feel like, I don't know if it's maybe like this personality type or INT or INFJ, but yeah.
Yeah, we just want to know all the things. We want to know all the reasons why and behind it. And then I think we have this idea that it's going to help us improve. And sometimes it does, definitely for me, but a lot of it too is just the learning. I love learning about different things and about myself, and coming to these realizations of like, oh, that's why it is. Maybe that's why I can't change it. Or maybe that's why I've had so much trouble changing it.
See, but then my curiosity goes to like, okay, like, then what can I do about it? Like,
right?
what, like, or it's like, now that I know this, because I feel like insight without being able to take action is just really frustrating for me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't want all the insight without then having a way to use it.
Yes. Yes, for sure. So tell me how you got to be a career coach.
Yeah. So the way I got to be a career coach is that I worked in, like I said, I worked in like talent, leadership, organizational development inside of organizations. And so some of the work that I did inside companies as in those roles, right? A lot of times it had to do with like identifying maybe like high potential employees, right? People that were perceived as having high potential. That's a whole, that's a whole,
right?
oh, there's so many, yeah.
Extroverted and you're good with people and you went to a really fancy school, then you must be really great at what you do.
Right? Like, how you identify potential. There's a lot of different thoughts on that, right? There's a lot of different thoughts. Or even like, who is the best at, like, can you even identify potential, right? So, but at the time, it was like identifying people. And then also like creating opportunities or programs or opportunities to develop those people internally and prepare them for future roles in the organization, potentially, right? So it's like high potential programs. Sometimes those programs were helpful for people, sometimes they weren't, right? Depending on how you kind of perform in them, which is also a little unfortunate, right? That again, like so much of how people perceive you like falls on this, one experience or program. But then I also created different like leadership development programs, classes, content, mentoring programs, coaching programs, teaching leaders how to become better at coaching their associates, teaching them how to have better conversations around managing performance, right? Like, so you think about organizational performance, and performance within teams. And so a lot of that kind of work, a lot of work around like culture and engagement. So again, and inside of that work, I was always looking for opportunities to incorporate coaching, whether it's one-on-one or in programs or learning about it. Sometimes we would leverage external coaches. Sometimes we would train people internally to be coaches, and sometimes people on my team would serve as coaches, right? So within these programs, we also used a lot of different assessments, right, to help people understand their strengths and maybe their opportunities. And within that also worked to identify like what success looked like at different levels in the organization, right? It was kind of like the trend or the practice at the time. And still is in a lot of organizations. So what does success look like? Then how do we develop people or equip them to achieve success at that level, right? So what are the skills? How do we help them build the skills? I have a different approach now, right? That I use with people based on my experience and what I think or what I've seen work and what I've seen work better, right? So I think, how we develop or how we're learning about how people develop has evolved, like how we develop skills and capabilities. And we were talking about failure, right? And learning from doing. And so personally, my approach now that I use inside of organizations and outside of organizations has more to do with like the mindset, right? That's going to help you be successful. And definitely like what are the strategies and tools, and like building the skill, but building that skill really comes from practice and doing, and then reflecting and refining, right? And so it's a lot more of learning by doing. And in order to be successful at learning by doing, we really have to look at how we're approaching and thinking about this development experience, right? And then also supporting people after whatever it is that they've just done, whether it's a workshop or a class or a program. But how do you help people? How do you kind of give them a process in which to develop themselves that they can repeat? And then also, like, how do you create a sense of community, right, to support that development, so people know that they're not alone. They know it's like giving people permission to just do. It doesn't even have to be to fail, but just to do it, maybe not perfectly the first time. I think that's especially important when you think about coaching, whether it's inside of organizations or outside. But there are a lot of like really critical conversations that managers have with people. And everybody, especially if you want to be a good manager, you want to do a good job. You want to have a good conversation, right? And sometimes the fear of not having a perfect conversation keeps us from having any conversation. So it's like, how do we just get more comfortable showing up as ourselves and having an authentic conversation, and really leading with like, here's what I want. Like what is like the mutual goal here, right? Like, what is the shared purpose that we have? And how do I just let this person know I care about them, right? And their performance, or, how they're doing at work, and help them problem solve. But it's less about like having the perfect conversation, and really, again, putting that focus on the other person, taking it off yourself, and having the courage to then just do it. Whether it's the courage to try, the courage to show up. I mean, because once you start a conversation, right, if we're using that example, all you have to do is start it, because you can't, you know what I mean?
Right.
All you have to do is start it. Like, if you have the courage to start the conversation, and again, share, like, this is what I really want, right? This is what I don't want, right? But, yeah, so doing that kind of work, right, I really enjoyed. But I've always, I think I mentioned, even when I was in college, what I really wanted to be was a college career counselor, honestly.
Yeah.
I talked myself out of it. Well, I was a psych major at one point, a lot of times actually. But I talked myself out of it because I didn't think there was a really strong career trajectory with it, honestly. I thought, how hard will it be? Like all the logical, like the rational thoughts kind of like set in. And I was like, well, maybe that's going to really limit my options. At the time, I assumed that I needed a master's to do it. And then I'd be going to school to do this one thing, and then maybe I wouldn't be able to do anything else, right? Again, there's so many incorrect assumptions there. Right. But that's what I really wanted to do. So I've always had that desire. So when I was in organizations, I found ways to kind of incorporate and do that. And then just recently, a few years ago, actually maybe even less than that, I just decided I just really wanted to start doing it. So why not? And so, yeah, it's always been a passion of mine. Development's always been a passion. And I think with career coaching, I think there's a couple different reasons people look for a career coach, right? One, there are people that just want clarity. They want to know what to do. And I relate to that because that has been me my whole life. I'm still, right, like still deciding what I want to be when I grow up. And I've decided that it doesn't have to just be one thing, right? It can be different things. And that, again, and then also reminding myself that my value and my worth is not my career, right? What I do with my career is what I do with my career, and that doesn't define who I am. And so really continuing to remind myself that too. So the people that want clarity, right? And I think you and I talked a little bit about it earlier, but also I think what's really helpful for those people is to really find a way, like a practice that helps them connect to their intuition, their inner wisdom, and what it is that they want, and maybe detach a little bit from what they think people want from them, or what, other people's expectations and opinion, right? Because I think that's a lot of what causes the conflict and the lack of clarity, is because there's so many sources of input, and we're looking for somebody to tell us, or a sign, or what is it that I should do? Or we know what it is that we want to do. We're just too scared to do it.
Yes.
You know
So
what I mean?
much, yes.
Or
Yeah.
we think it's not going to work, or we don't think we deserve it, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we continue to ask, what should I do? When really, like, there's something inside of us, like, saying, like, I know what you should do, right? But we just don't want to listen to it.
Or somebody's told us that we can't do it. And so
Yeah.
we believe that we can't do it. And we start looking for something else.
Or we think that we can't be successful doing it, right? Or we think that I don't have the ability, or I need more education, which, again, if we're looking to disprove ourselves, you mentioned being a life coach. There are plenty of people out there that do life coaching that don't have a certification,
Yeah.
right? It's not regulated. And there's some people that, are wildly successful. So we impose, right? We impose those limits on ourselves, right? To keep us where we are, whether we're aware of it or not. So clarity is one of the reasons I think people come to a career coach or want one. Another one is transition, right? So it's like, I know what I want to do. I think I know what I want to do. I just don't know how to move from here to there, right? So that's career coach can definitely, like, so I can help people with that, or I help people with that. And that kind of goes back to, we were talking, it's not necessarily going back to school for another degree, right? The first step is, well, how can I find ways, one, to meet people who do this? Like, I just want to learn more about what this is, and test the assumption that I actually want to do this, or this is the right move for me. Or, like, I have nephews that are in marketing, right? There's so many, or they're in college and their degree is in marketing, right? And it's like, there's so many different things you can do within marketing. Like, I have friends that work in digital marketing. I have friends that work in social media. I have friends that work in PR, right? I have friends that work in advertising. Like, there's just so many different. So if I think I want to work in marketing, let's say I don't have a degree in marketing, right? I have a degree in human resources, right? Like, how might I learn more about the opportunities, right? And what I want to do. So you could talk, there's different, talking to people, finding ways to experiment to see, like, is this actually what I want to do? What is it about this that attracts me to it? Is it actually marketing, or what do I think I'm going to enjoy about it? So anybody that's looking to transition careers. And then also there's people that just want to grow and be more successful in their own career. And those are the people that I've helped most within organizations, which makes sense, right? Because they're looking to develop internal talent and capabilities. So so they're just people that want to be more successful in their current career. Maybe they feel like they're being overlooked. Maybe they have aspirations. Maybe they don't know how to talk about, or, maybe they don't know what their, unique value proposition is and how to talk about it to people, right? You talked about promoting, like, to some extent, you have to be willing to promote yourself and be willing to share, like, this is where I'd like to go, right? And open yourself up to, maybe any vulnerability that comes with it. Yeah.
That's so difficult to do. Even if you don't want to start your own business, even if you're just looking to get a new job or to change careers, it's such a big thing to sell yourself, to write down all of your skills and what you do, and then apply for the right kinds of jobs for you. I've been in so many positions where I've been undervalued, where I've really been underemployed because I have been scared to jump up and say, hey, I know how to do more than this, or have been scared to apply for jobs where I didn't know how to do every single thing that was listed.
Or people are afraid to apply for a job they don't think they're going to get, right? Yeah. A lot of times internally. Or people just don't know. Sometimes people just need the simple help of identifying, their strengths and understanding how they show up at work, how other people can leverage their strengths, where they're going to, it's kind of like taking your interest and your passion and your strengths and combining that into a conversation, right? Or maybe you don't have a manager that asks you about your career aspirations, right? So then how do you find people within your organization to learn from? A lot of it depends on the culture within organizations too. Sometimes it's sometimes growing your career inside of where you are, like the company that you're in, or maybe it's growing it outside of that company, right? But either way, that's the person that just wants, they like what they do, but they want to grow their career in that area.
Yeah.
that
So
space.
tell us a little bit more about the specific services that you offer and what it looks like if you're looking for a career coach.
Yes. So right now I mostly work with people one-on-one. I have kind of like a framework that I am developing and using. And at some point I would love to create a program around it. Um, but right now I'm really just using it kind of like with people one-on-one, but it is a mix of, again, that clarity, right? Like kind of getting clear on what you want to do, or maybe some different options. Like it's kind of like getting clear on who you are, what it is you want to do, and what your options are, right? Sometimes, it's kind of all three of those things. Like what could you do, right? And then having a process for vetting those options and deciding kind of like where you want to start. And then it's kind of the experimenting, right? So the clarity and then learning by doing. How can you create some experiments, right? Where you can test those assumptions, right? And it's not really testing whether or not you're good at it. It's more testing whether or not you enjoy it and what it is that you enjoy about it, and how you maybe want to do more of that, right? Who can you connect with? And some of the activities there are really great because by doing and connecting with people, you're broadening your network, right? You're increasing your clarity, right? You're getting clarity by doing. You are increasing your confidence by doing, and you're also increasing your capability by doing. So if you actually decide that's what you want to do, you've already, right, kind of built a network, some confidence and capability around doing it, which makes it just easier to transition. Because we all have transferable skills, right? Like a lot of people, like you said, you think like, oh, I have to be able to do everything the way it's written in the job description. It's like, well, I mean, that's one option maybe for somebody, or like you have a lot of experience and strength and skills that you could easily parlay into another career. It's just knowing how to talk about it really and how to position yourself, and the value that they get by having somebody with your background, right? Instead of just maybe, having somebody that fits the job description perfectly. So, so yeah, right now though, it's mostly one-on-one. And then I also work with people who maybe have some subconscious blocks or resistance to having what it is that they want. Or, I think we talked a little bit earlier about, sometimes we find ourselves in the same situation over and over and over, right? And it takes a few times before we notice the pattern and we realize, gosh, maybe it's not the job, maybe it's not the manager, maybe it's me. Like I keep creating this situation for myself, and why do I do that? It's really uncovering kind of like those subconscious beliefs that are holding us back from having what we want, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And if we can't, and what I found is if we're not able to uncover and release those beliefs or reprogram them, then we're going to keep taking action. And no matter what we do, we're going to sabotage our success, right? And so it's really like, how do we uncover that and address it and release it so that we can move forward, like really, truly move forward. And so there's a lot of cool stuff there too.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us where we can find you, your website and your social media.
So you can find me at KristinMangus.com and then on Facebook.
Awesome. And we'll put a link for everything in the show notes too, so that everybody can find you.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
All right, here's some takeaways from our interview. Number 1, you're never going to be really good at something if you don't actually do it. Number 2, so many times we're paralyzed by fear and it holds us back from doing things in our business. A great way to break out of fear is to focus on the audience you're trying to serve instead of yourself. Number 3, so many of us have the belief that we shouldn't make money doing what we love. We should have to work hard for our money. This is a limiting belief that we need to work through. Number 4, sometimes you have to start small when pricing what you're offering and work up to charging more for your services. And number 5, working with a career coach can help you sort out what career you should go into. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. As a reminder, you can go to youtube.com/The Quiet Ones podcast to watch the video interview. Please subscribe wherever you listen and let me know what you think. You can always find me on Instagram at INFJ Woman or at The Quiet Ones podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.